Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, allow me to apologize for the delay. We're really sorry that the stream got delayed a little bit, but I hope that this patience has paid off. Remember, thank you so much for waiting patiently. A lot of things a lot of things in life are worth waiting for. Let's hope this is one of them. Really excited for grid number 4 today. Let's hope we have an amazing race. We had three grids over the past 3 days. We saw runaway victories from all three of them with the Bulls of Bulls Racing and the Bulls from Hermes Racing, all taking away, running away victories with all four drivers from both those teams making it into the semi-finals. We are back today for grid number 4 in the Rev-it the Rev-it Endurance quarterfinal series, grid number 4 out of 8. So, for our new viewers joining us for today's race, allow me to give you a quick introduction to Rev-it. Rev-it is a virtual racing challenge by Formula Bharat in collaboration with IR Esports. This event does have racing, but it's also a fundamental test of your engineering knowledge in setting up race cars and is basically a typical recreation of an FS Dynamic event setup with one major difference. That's right, we do have wheel to wheel racing today. One of the many advantages of racing in the virtual world, from the safety and comfort of your own cozy little gaming chairs at home. So these drivers are just going to battle it out and try to get into the top four positions in this grid of eight. Formula Bharat is an Indian Formula student style engineering design competition in which students from colleges and universities from all over the country compete with a life size Formula style vehicle in areas of engineering design, overall cost, marketability, and dynamic performance. The series replicates the global Formula Student Series, hosted in around 11 countries per year, launched in 2017. Each year, Formula Bharat hosts both combustion and electric vehicle categories, with a student community base of more than 8,000 engineering students, including all of you in our viewership today. The platform hopes to promote practical hands on engineering experiences. Rev-it is also in collaboration with IR Esports, who are India's largest e-racing organizers. IR Esports has created iconic properties in the racing esports space, such as the Indian e-racing competition championship, the IERC, the Volkswagen Virtual Racing Championship, Mumbai's fastest gamer, India's fastest gamer, the Indian Sim Racing League, and many, many more. IR Esports curates, plans, and executes custom motorsport-based campaigns via esports across various mediums. On that note, let's jump straight into the action. You see on screen, our wonderful race directors Gaurav and Furoz are bringing all these camera angles to you live on screen. We've got two race stewards for today. Both are experienced professionals in the domain of racing. Our first steward is Aditya Pawar. He's got multiple podiums in the Volkswagen Polo Championship. As a winner of multiple four-stroke karting tournaments, he's also former test driver and stunt driver for Volkswagen Motorsport India and an official Jaguar instructor. Our second steward for today is Abha Mankar. She was in the top 5 in the Young Drivers program and was also in the top 10 in the 1 billion hunt hosted by Force India many years ago. She's got multiple podiums in four-stroke and in two-stroke and four-stroke karting, and has also been a Jaguar instructor. Very experienced stewards, taking care of all the rules, making sure the drivers follow the disciplines which they must during this race. My name is Saidat Ramesh. I'll be your commentator tonight, and I'd like to invite you to join us as we dive straight into the qualifying action. We have just under 11 minutes left in qualifying, and I'm happy to say today we have the biggest turnout in the number of cars shown up on grid. You see that we've got 7 drivers on grid today. Till now, we've only had about 6. So I'm really happy to say we do have 7 drivers on the grid. I can already see from the chat we've got a lot of hype for EFAR. So let's start with EFAR on the grid today. That's right. That is E Formula Ashwa Riders. The driver is Kevin, the number 310. And look at that livery. We've already got this team taken. This team has actually already taken part in grid 2. The driver back then was Aditya Vyas. He finished in grid 2, but he finished only in P5. So he didn't manage to qualify as of that day, at least according to those results. Today, Kevin Kuriakos is trying to replay their luck and maybe try to this time switch it around a bit, get into that top 4 and get qualified. Interesting livery. We saw this before as well. And I kept talking about the good luck chart. In fact, I had a unique opportunity to chat with Kevin before the race start. Apparently, the that logo, I mean, those little words written on the car are in Japanese, and it's Japanese for speed demon. So let's hope the demon is unleashed, the demonic, the raw power from that engine is unleashed, and that will help them get into the top four. That is your first contestant today. That's the first driver from EFAR. Our second driver is from Formula Ashwa Riders. So it's the counterpart. So we have the electric Formula Ashwa Riders here. Formula Ashwa Riders is being driven by Vedant in the number 211. Very interesting livery as well by being supported by Vedant Burande. Tire marks down the nose cone of the car, and then you've got this checkered flag pattern across the sides of the vehicle. Very nice livery indeed. I really like this one. So Vedant is going to try to take Formula Ashwa Riders' first attempt in the quarterfinals, get there in the top four. Our next team for today is Amrita Racing. That is AR. We have them on grid. Yes, yes, we do. We've got AR. The driver is Prithvi Raj. They have a lot of experience in Supra and in Formula Student. So they have been there in the Formula Student sphere in Formula Bharat for quite a while now. So another team that's quite experienced in Formula Student and design. Their livery, if you see closely, I know that the shadows, the beautiful shadows from the tree are falling on their car, but you can see that they have the livery with the logo Phoenix written on it. Phoenix is in fact the name of their car. It's the name of their actual FS car. So it's a nice little tribute to the real life vehicle they're working on. Today we're in the virtual world, and I'm quite sure Prithvi will be looking forward to qualifying with that beautiful car. Our next driver on the grid, the next team is OMS. You see him at P3 right now. OMS Samyak in the number 205 Lotus 9080. Ojaswat Motorsports is the Formula Student team of Charotar University of Science and Technology. And it was started back in 2011. They've already got about 8 awards to their name as of today. The car is being driven by Samyak Damani. Really, really nice livery, ultramarine blue livery with will definitely provide a cool contrast to that red and yellow autumn backdrop around Monza. Another brilliant little car out there. The next car, which we have on grid, we should have the NRE racing electric car being driven by Nikhilesh, the number 411. He is, of course, using a stock livery provided to him, but it's a nice little standout livery, a red and yellow livery. We saw this being sported, in fact, by Vedant Kotagi, who took part for the same team in grid number 1 3 days ago. He finished P2 on that grid. So let's hope Nikhilesh can push his car as well and get both cars from that team into the top, into the semi-finals, basically, which will be hosted later on this month. We've then got Bits Goa Racing, the BGR car being driven by Ishan Tandon in the number 112. So this car is the one that won the Rev-it design, the Rev-it livery design competition, which was held just before Rev-it started. I'm sure you all checked that out. If you haven't already, check that out on Formula Bharat's social media page. There's some brilliant liveries. You can have a look at all these liveries being sported by the drivers, but this one did stand out. Unfortunately, due to a small little glitch, I don't part of the livery sticking out. But something unique, if you go online and check it out, was that they had colored sidewall tires. One of the only teams to do that. They had turquoise blue sidewall tires, which really helped them stand out. This also looks really good on its own, and I think they. The only thing they really have to do is try to push and get that into the top four. Our next team on grid is ZM. It is Zenith Motorsport, being driven by M. Afin Shafi. He is sporting a brilliant livery as well. I didn't get a chance to actually see this livery because his co-driver from grid 1, Yadunand Lal PK, unfortunately did not only did a few laps, I think, towards the end of that race, finishing P1. Let's hope Afin can flip their luck and try to get his car to the top four as well. And if you see closely on their rear wing, it says Hydra. Hydra is coincidentally the name of this livery, named after the Marvel villain. So that's something for all of you pop culture fans out there. There's a little trivia for you on this team specifically. Now, I believe the only team, unfortunately, we're missing from this grid is TBR, Team Vegadut Racing. The car should be driven by Rahul Patel. Let's hope he joins in before the race starts, because if he joins after that, he's going to lose out big time. On that note, we have just about 5 minutes left in qualifying. You all know the drill by now. Those of you who have been watching these streams, just gotta wait and hope that these drivers put out solid, really competitive lap times. by the looks of it, the top five have done so. P1 doing a 148.3 and then P5 doing a 148.9. So that's already 10 seconds separating the top five, the first and fifth place driver currently on grid. Ishan is going to want to put out a faster lap as well, get his Bitsgoa racing car up there in the mids. He's currently done a 154.2. I'm quite sure he can do a little bit faster than that. Let's hope he pushes. And then, of course, the Zenith Motorsport driver, Affin, also needs to put out a fast lap. That's just an out lap right now, mind you, a 201.2. He still has quite a bit of time to get that car up there in a good, respectable spot. That is not exactly what you want to be doing in a race, least of all in qualifying when you're trying to get fast laps on the board. It looks like there was some collision between OMS, Samyak, and another car on the grid. So he had to revert back to the pits. But yeah, you know what? If you look at the leaderboard today, we've got very competitive times in the top three. Is about as close as we've had a qualifying session up till now. That is just about 1.3 seconds between P1 and P3. So definitely a lot more competitive time. A lot of competitive times are starting to spout themselves out there on the leaderboard. Let's ride on board with Nikhilesh and have a view of how it looks down the main straight. I feel like Nikhilesh might have just heard me and decided, nope, I want to stop the car. But yeah, I don't think he really needs to do much more. He's already got a lap time 3 seconds clear of P2. As I said that, two red cars over here. Remember, today we've actually got three red cars on the grid, so there might be a bit of confusion when looking at them in the backdrop. But this is the red car of Prithvi Raj in his Amrita Racing vehicle. Flying around trying to get improve his lap time. He's almost matched OMS Samyak's time, but he's really going to want to get up there and meet Nikhilesh's time. Let's see what he does this time around. Right. So this is quite interesting. He stopped the car as well. All right, maybe I won't say that anymore when they cross the line. Let's just wait and see instead. I'll be quiet when they get back onto the main straight. But yeah, it looks like both the top two drivers have decided to abort their runs. I think they're quite happy with their current times. Remember, we've got 2.5 minutes left on the clock. So if anyone wants to put out a time, they're going to have to get their car out there on track right now, or else we'll go straight into the race, because once you go too far into the overtime for qualifying, the server will automatically reset. So while we ride on board with Samyak, let's go through some of the information that Ojaswat Motorsport has been kind enough to provide to us about their team. So, they've taken part in multiple FS events in the past. They've won first place in endurance and efficiency in the past. In FS, they've taken part in, they've got prizes in business and cost. There's still one thing they want to add to their tally. They say they want to be overall winners of Formula Bharat. I'll tell you one thing, you shouldn't be crashing into cars like that if you want to get victory in this event. It looked almost as though maybe the car ahead was slow as well. But yeah, they're really charging their team. That's really starting to improve, and they really want to get up there in the top step of the podium. So good luck to OMS. Thanks for giving that little write-up for us. But yeah, good luck to you all. Try to get up there as well. I know all these teams are trying to get into the top four. Only got 7. So they're going to be 3 unlucky drivers who will not make it up there. Let's hope everyone has a clean and very close race. We had really close races in grid 2 and grid 3. I hope we maintain that momentum. I hope the drivers put on a good show, and I hope they're confident in their setups. We'll start getting a little bit into the details of the technicalities of the car as the race progresses. So let's have an onboard view of Vedant as he takes his FAR car down the back straight. You can see that timer down there. So the time on the right side is the split time, the sector time. The one on the left is what he's currently on in this lap. So it's already about 5 seconds off the fastest time, I believe. That's either going to be the fastest or his best. Let's hope for his sake it's the fastest time. That would put him 2 seconds faster than what he did before, a 143.3. Let's see what he does. Entering into Parabolica. as he goes through that final corner. You want to take a tight line, gradually open up your steering wheel. Don't ask too much from the tires. Remember, that's a high downforce corner. If you ask too much from it, it will overheat. He's got a 143.595. So he didn't manage to improve that time, but from that split time, you can see that's with respect to the leader's time. So it's a good thing that he did have quite a charge, but he did start his current lap now after the overtime on the timer started. So that's going to be all for qualifying for FAR Vedant. Can we just cycle through the other cars, see if anybody else is out there putting one final attempt for the qualifying session? Yes, we've got Samyak going through Askari right now. Kevin on the back straight, but he's well off his best time. So I don't think I believe this is the end of qualifying for the EFAR, the Electric Formula Rider team. Um, Ishan crossing the line. He's got his lap time done. So I believe this is how the order stands right now, well into overtime. And we've got TVR, we've got Rahul back on the grid. It's good to see Rahul made it just in time. I would say just in time for the race at least. He's got stuck in one of those barriers. Good thing qualifying is done. Remember, there are no yellow flags as such for these drivers. They have no idea what's happening around them. So I think that adds to one of the more trickier parts of this competition. See there, Ishan just narrowly avoiding the car on track. Um, I don't believe he's doing a qualifying lap. He's just getting a feel for the circuit still. But yeah, Rahul, good to see him back on the grid, just managing to make it back in time. So this is a record, everybody who's watching. We've got 8 drivers on the grid, 8 cars on the grid today. I am super excited for this race. I hope you all are as well. Let's hear some support. Let's hear some love for all the drivers putting their lap times out there. Share your team on in the comments. Let's see who's going to win this. Let's see who's going to take all the glory and who is going to get knocked out at the end of today's race. So I can see from the chat, a lot of support for EFAR, a lot of support for Samyak. Where are the other teams? Let's hear you all hype up your teammates. It's all about the competition. It's about the sportsmanship. Let's get those drivers pumped up. Let's hope they put on a good show. There we go. We've got 1 minute left before the race starts. Remember, it's a 20-minute race. So look at that timer on the top of your screen to know when the race is about to start. So we've got the first car. We've got all these cars on the grid. I'll just allow you to enjoy the revving noises for the next 40 seconds. Okay, 15 seconds left on that clock. Everybody is lined up on the grid. I think that last grid spot is just basically a dummy car placed there. It's not one of the competitors. Don't worry about that. All the lights are going on right now. 6 lights are on at the moment. 2, 1 second, 0. The lights are out. We're under green flag conditions. And NRE Nikhilesh only gets a blitzing start. The Amrita driver loses out in that tussle. He's got a really bad start. A lot of wheel spin. Got a couple of blue cars coming up right now. We'll just wait and see who they are. Looks like the Bits Goa driver got a good start. Already a little bit of a tap at the back. Someone got knocked into the front part of the barriers, and everyone somehow manages to get through that. So the first thing I want to perhaps have a look at is Vedant, whether he's got any damage. Another red car way at the back, going wide already, spinning out. Vedant has got a decent start right now. He's gotten to P2, but remember, he did have a bit of a collision there. His wing may be damaged. Someone decides to play pinball onto that wall, spins straight through, and there is a multiple car collision out there. That's at least one. So all 3 red cars out. Oh wow, that's perhaps the wrong color to have on the grid today. Having a red livery seems to be bad luck at the time being. That is so unfortunate. So positions 5, 6, and 7 are already filled by the drivers in the pits. The top 4 have gotten away cleanly. Samyak way out in front. Vedant and Kevin missed out a bit. The EFAR and FAR drivers missed out a little bit as they got through. And then you've got TBR Rahul in P5. But I have a feeling the battle up front is not yet over. So looking at that order, it's very unfortunate for NRE Nikhilesh. The pole sitter for today is all the way down in P7, as good as being in plum last. ZM Affin starting P7 as P7, but now ending up in P8 as well. All those drivers are in the pit. I think even Amrita Racing, Prithvi, the P2 driver is also in the pit. So it looks like both these front runners lost out big time at the beginning of the race and had multiple collisions after that while tussling with each other through Curva Grande. As I talk about the race start, we complete the first lap of the race, and there's already an overtaking maneuver down the main straight. You'd love to see it. That's exactly what you want to see. Samyak got the slipstream and pulled off that move perfectly. Vedant having to now defend from Kevin, who's right behind him. The ESR driver is right there trying to chase him down. Let's ride on board with Kevin and see his perspective as you see Vedant trying to make a move in front. Let's see how that battle turns out from his perspective. You see Kevin just biding his time back here, 2.5 seconds away from the leader, and just waiting to see if any sort of incident happens in front. Looks like everybody is taking the Della Roccia chicane very carefully. You see everyone just trying to stay off the curbs, and this is the first thing we'll start looking at. Let's try to see some of those suspension movements. I think a good place to see that will actually be through the chicanes, maybe the next time by. We can have a rear view a view of the car that will show you exactly how the suspension is moving up and down. Kevin is not really bothered too much about that. He's got a good run out of Lesmo too as he goes down through that cambered section, rides the camber of the track, exits perfectly down the back straight, decides to back out of it. I think it was very smart for him to do that. It would have been an inevitable collision. And at the end of the day, that didn't matter because he spun into Ascari. Again, it just looks like he didn't really strike any of the curves. He just spun, which gives me the feeling that they have a bit too much of forward bias into that corner, or the rear end of the car just lifted, biasing the arrow forwards. Got a snap of oversteer. Once you spin the car, once you spin a car like this with almost thousand horsepower, it's about as good as game over when that torque goes into the rear wheels. Samyak making his way through. He's already got the fastest lap of the race, leading the pack right now. Look at that gap already. So he's making his way down the back straight. My apologies. That is the Bits Goa car of Ishan. So it'll be interesting actually to see how Bits Goa has set up their car. If you can get maybe a rear chase view or maybe the circular view we got in the beginning, when we were introducing the drivers, that'll give us an idea of how exactly his suspension system is. Maybe an external view would be better. This is a nice view to see Ishan as he goes down the straight. So observe how he actually attacks the curves. It'll show you how the suspension is moving. It'll give you a decent idea of the roll characteristics of the car, especially as he mounts the curb. Breaks into the corner, avoids that curve. Okay, looks almost a bit like netcode over there. See, it's the camera angle as well. So he's avoided both curves. I have a feeling all the drivers are listening to this right now and just trying to do exactly what I tell them not to. It doesn't look like we'll know exactly how the suspension is this time. By car looks reasonably planted from the rear. Let's see what happens into Della Roccia. Breaks into the corner at about the final board. Once again, Ishan is just taking it very carefully. So he knows he just has to hold on to P4 and it's as good as winning this race because he makes his way into the semi-finals. So you see the way he's turning the wheel. It almost makes me think he's either using a keyboard or quite a jittery input for the controllers. You can already see that from the way his steering is going out. Remember, wheels are not allowed for this competition. You are not allowed to use steering wheels in these races. You are, however, allowed to use a mouse. And remember, using a mouse will give you an analog input, a much smoother input to your steering and throttle, a lot more similar to what it would be in real life. Of course, you do have a steering wheel in real life, but it is the input that really matters. Keyboard won't give you that fidelity. The keyboard just gives you digital signals, and it's either going to be a 1 or a 0 when it comes to adding that steering or throttle input. As Ishan makes his way down, Samyak's already made a massive gap to at least Ishan, but he's not pulling away quite as fast as the sort of gaps we saw from the leaders in the previous races. Samyak has now got about 7 seconds to the car behind, and it's going to keep oscillating between 3 and 7 seconds. Remember, the relative screen in Assetto Corsa is dynamic as opposed to the one that as opposed to one that gets updated every few millisectors. So don't take this, take the relative numbers, the relative distances with a pinch of salt. I don't think Vedant took his entry to that corner with a pinch of salt. He trusted the car too much as he threw it into the grass. So he might have had to second guess himself mid corner. Looks like he lost the rear end as he turned into Lesmo 2. Let's hope there's no serious damage. He's got a good gap to P4, so he's still well within the podium limits of the current grid. But we're going to have to see how that affects his car, whether he's going to start losing front end grip as a result of that crash into the Aramco barrier. As we see it in the chat, a lot of hype coming up for Samyak as well, for EFAR. Someone reckons mouse steering is the way to go. Dare I say it, I think I agree with you there in terms of an analog input, definitely the way to go. But remember, it's a very tricky way to drive your car, very unintuitive, if you would say. How many times have any of you used a mouse to drive your vehicles when you play games? Let us know in the comment section below what you would prefer as your input for this race. We see the Bitsgoa car just coming out of the pits, so looks like he had to pit for damage. And amidst all of that, Kevin is coming up to actually almost lap P4, so it already looks like top three are en route to lap everyone. You see the Bitsgoa car out there just entering into the first chicane, and you see another car. You see the red car of I need to double check who that is, but I believe that is the car of Nikhil Singh from NITK Electric. That must be the NRE car. Yes, that is NRE's car, just making his way through Curva Grande. The first corner is that? No, he's going through Parabolica. There we go. He's got back on the main straight. So it is another red car out in front in Kevin's side. So Ishan is out there chasing down. Who's that? Who's that ahead of him on track? But I don't think Ishan is too bothered about that. Another car just planted in the middle of this little mini straight between the two Lesmo corners. Yeah, but Ishan is in the world of his own. He's a lap ahead of P5. So if he holds on to this position, he will make it into the semi-finals. We've seen a lot of dynamic changes in the grid toward the latter half of the stage. So we're going to have to wait and see if Ishan can make it stick. He's got a good upper hand right now as he makes his way through Ascari once again. Maxed out revs. That's what you want to hear from this engine as he makes his way down one of the shorter straights of the track, dare I say. He turns through Parabolica and makes his way back onto the main straight. But a lot of jittery movements from it. It'd be good to see what sort of steering inputs Samyak is giving to his car, because he seems to have figured it out by now, pulling away a good half a minute gap to P3 right now, but only about half that time to P2. There we go. Samyak actually attacking the curves very aggressively. Yeah, his inputs are not quite as smooth as what you'd expect either. This looks almost as though he might be using a controller, which is also a very good input device, making his way through Lesmo 2. Snacks the curb a little bit. I think he attacked it maybe a bit too fast. Is that a sign that perhaps his fast damping values are not quite stiff enough? Maybe the suspension seemed to have bottomed out a bit too quickly over there, potentially planking his car down onto that curb as well. He lost a bit of time on exit, making his way through Ascari once again, trying to avoid the curb. So that already tells me that perhaps this team has not actually figured out their fast damping values very well. Remember, the normal dampers are what you use for transient characteristics of the car. The dynamic turning of the car as you steer through corners, and the sort of dynamic nature, pitch and roll of the car when it comes to aero performance. On the flip side, the fast damping is more suited for well, fast movements of the damper, basically anything going faster than 1 inch per second, faster than 25 per second, typically when you look at it in those ranges. And those are mostly curb strikes. Curb strikes are quite fast, go to almost up to about a meter per second if your dampers are not set properly. And these are all things that they can see in their Motec files. And you see Samyak just avoiding the curbs. At this point, I'm not quite sure what he's planning to do. He does have a decent, solid lead, but his inputs don't seem to be quite as perfect as the other cars we saw in the previous grids. Massive gaps. There's a massive gap now between Samyak and Vedant. So something's happened to Vedant. It'll be good to actually ride on board with Kevin, who's perhaps got Vedant in his sights right now. Let's jump on board with Kevin over there in his cockpit view. Where is the car up ahead? It's about 5 to 6 seconds. It was 5 to 6 seconds, but it seems to have increased once again. Either way, Kevin has run into some sort of issue on track. Looking at that gap between him and P1, from 12 seconds, it's gone all the way up to 30 seconds. Let's hear some support for TVR, NRE, AR, and ZM. All those four cars were still trying to push to get into the top four. Remember, the race is not over yet. There are still 8 minutes left, albeit eight very, very difficult minutes left for the bottom four, because it looks like there's at least more than it's about 1.5 laps worth of a gap between P4 and P5. Looks like Affin has just parked it through one of those Lesmos, so perhaps he's just decided to teleport back to the pit. Unfortunate for him, as he just plummets down the order, looking at the time between him and the leader. Kevin now having to battle with the back marker there. You can see the back marker of, is that, we need to see who that was, but I'm quite sure that was a back marker looking at the gaps right now. Kevin just in a world of his own right now, and you see Vedant having dropped some more. So Vedant has lost P2. It must have been a technical issue or some problem with this car. He undoubtedly had some sort of damage. You wouldn't lose that much time unless you've pit in this game. Can we have a look at where exactly Vedant is? There he is. He's exiting the pits. So he did have some sort of issue with this car. Exiting the pits now. Well, he has clear track up ahead, but the P2 driver Kevin is almost about to lap him. You can see Kevin way out there in the distance, way back over there. You can see him just coming up into the corner. There we go. He's just crossing the line right now. So I think it's safe to say today's grid has been spaced out a lot more aggressively than yesterday, despite having a very close qualifying session. So it's really anyone's game. You can already say the qualifying results mean next to nothing really when it comes to the outright performance, the final results of the race. It's not just about being fast. It's about being consistent. It's about setting up your car so that you don't wear out your tires too quickly. And most importantly, it's about having confidence in that setup. Let's hope these drivers have spent a lot of time with their teams setting up the vehicles. Remember, most of the members of the teams are also engineers themselves. They've all been a part of the setup process. I would hope everyone in the team has involved themselves in the setup process, multiple subsystems to look at, multiple parts of that Vortex file to look at. So there is a lot of change in these cars, and we hope these teams have put the best efforts that they could. Remember, this is after all a technical and engineering based competition, so there will be this design finals basically which will be held later on at the end of this event, where some of the teams will be grilled on the technical choices they've made in their setup. And if they can't defend that, well, it really doesn't matter whether you've got good performance in the dynamics if you have no idea how you've actually set up the vehicle. Engineering is all about knowing both. It's about having your theory set right and also making theoretical changes based on dynamic outcomes. So Rahul has been planted in P5 for quite a while now. As he jumps, he potentially basically plants his car on that sausage curve. We have to keep avoiding that sausage curve. That's perhaps the most dangerous one on this track. It's as good as a wall at that point. It's all about just perfecting your line, perhaps having a very responsive car to be able to turn into those corners. Remember, the peculiarity of Monza is you don't have a lot of downforce. You actually do need it in certain parts. You need downforce at the Lesmos and at Parabolica, not so much in Curva Grande, the second long corner of the track. But it is a low downforce track. But in terms of the aero balance, it's more of a rearward bias in the aero balance, because when you hook that car through Parabolica, you don't want it to constantly oversteer, especially because Parabolica opens up. So you want a car that potentially is neutral to understeering in that corner, especially. So, one of the cool things these teams can change, apart from their obvious dampers, is also the bump stops. The bump stops have this unique capacity for you to actually change your aero behavior without necessarily changing your mechanical grip. Remember, your ride height will also change your mechanical grip. So it's all about finding that balance. And as the streams progress, we'll get more into details of how these bump stops will actually help teams. As of now, Nikilesh is just having a very lonely race over there. He's 10 seconds behind his closest competition, who is almost 100 seconds behind. He's about 1.5 minutes, basically one whole lap behind P4, which is where everyone will want to be. We've just got 3.5 minutes left in the race. I think it's safe to say at this point that some of these drivers will potentially be finishing in these positions. Let's hope it's not the case for their sake. Multiple drivers here would really want to get into the top four. Got a driver here, TVR, the TVR driver of Rahul, running with severe damage. That'll be easy. That'll be pretty interesting to ask to Rahul when we do those post-race interviews. So Rahul has been running with a damaged car for quite a while. And then you see the Bitsgoa driver of Ishan back in the pits. What happened to him here? It's the second time he pitted. He's pitted in this race. Now he's about managed to pit the car with just 2.5 minutes left in the race. So there's another interesting thing we'll have to ask Ishan. Remember, that gap is slowly closing down. You see Nikhilesh now battling it down in the back straight as he turns into Askari. He turns from that DRS zone into Askari, making his way down onto the final straight of the track. Where is Ishan in all this? If he's still in the pits, then we do have a battle on our hands for P4. There he is. He's slowly exiting the pits. But remember, he's got cold tires. He's going to have to pick the pace up, warm up those tires. Nikhilesh is flying down the final corner and getting his way down onto the main straight. Do we have a battle on our hands with just about 2, maybe 3 laps of the race left? Riding on board with Ishan from his rear wing right now. We can't really see anything apart from, of course, Bitsgoa Racing written there. That is, of course, the name of the team. That is the name of the Formula Student team that PGR, that Ishan is a part of. But we can't see Nikhil as of now anywhere in the back. But you can see from the relative screen that it says 5 seconds. Yeah. Ishan has to deal with some traffic up in front as well. So Ishan's got his hands full right now. He's going to have to defend, keep that at a 5 second gap. Remember, if these cars get within about 2, maybe 1.5 seconds of the car ahead, they will gain that slipstream. And that is exactly what Ishan will want to prevent Nikhilesh from gaining. Nikhilesh is down here. I'd say Ishan is probably entering Askari right now. Let's have a look at maybe Ishan's rear wing. There he is. Ishan is just entering Askari as Nikhilesh makes his way into Askari at the moment. So it looks like Ishan lost a bit of time battling with that back marker. There's, of course, the back marker, the that looks to be the Zenith Motorsport car over there with their unique carbon fiber livery on the front wing. There you have it. You have P5 insights at the back, getting a slipstream from that back marker, and we do have a battle on our hands for the final half of this race. Who is it going to be? Let's hear it in the chat. Is it going to be Pitscore Racing, or is it going to be NRE? Is it going to be NITK Electric with their second chance now to get into the semi-finals? Remember, their first driver, Vedant Kodagi, has already found his way into the semi-finals, finishing P2 in the first grid. Can they get the second car in there? This is, of course, Bitsgoa's first attempt in the quarterfinals. They have one more driver. You can see P5 right behind him. This battle is undoubtedly going to go down to the wire. This is going to be interesting to see between these two drivers. Let's see what happens over here. Oh no, there's been contact between these two. This is not what you want to see. P4 and P5. It looks like NRE Niklesh has just taken the Pitch God driver out. This is a feisty end to this lap. So this is something interesting that's happened right now. NRE Niklesh and BGR had a collision on the final lap. What has happened here? Ishan has lost out in that and he's down into P5, definitely having damage to his car. You see him already going wide. That front wing is toast. Come on, Ishan, get that car back up there. Let's try to make it at least to the finish line right now. Nikhilesh comfortably in P4 at the moment, flying down into Ascari. The race is not over yet. We've seen P4 drivers consistently spinning at Ascari. I hope I don't plant the commentator's curse there. I hope Nikhilesh manages to make his way through. But that is definitely an incident we'll have to investigate. That will be investigated later on in the race. It is a decider for the semi-finals. So we're not quite sure what the finishing order is. But we know one thing for sure. OMS, the OMS driver Samyak, has taken his Ojas with Motorsport car up into P1 and a dominant victory, I would say, for Samyak going up from P3. So OMS Samyak has gone from P3 to P1 with respect to qualifying. Look at P2, miles behind, or at this point, miles ahead on track. Kevin is only going through the second corner and the second chicane sequence now as he makes his way through. So that is perhaps P2 for Kevin. I am not quite sure if that is race over. It must be looking at the time on screen. But it looks like that is P2 for Kevin. Vedant over there in P3. Let's have a look at where Vedant is on track. There he is. Vedant's already crossed the line through the first chicane, taking P3 comfortably. And then NRE Nikhilesh taking that P4 position. Be interesting to talk to both Nikhilesh and Ishan as we find out what happened there in that final battle in the run up to the Della Roccia chicane. But this is what the order stands as right now. This has been a feisty, very very well, I would say oscillatory race. It's been quite messy, has it not? We've had a lot of battles, but also a lot of crashes in this race. So I think on that note, it'll be nice to have a chat with the drivers. Let's just wait for the final classifications to pop up and wait for some of these drivers to finish their race. But it looks like this is what the order is. The order you see on the left of your screen currently. There you have it. That is your final race classification. Samyak taking a dominant victory, Kevin coming second, and then Vedant Niklesh wrapping up the top four. Once again, we'll just wait for the final result to pop up. Remember, those results are being shown right now, but they're not. There might not potentially be the absolute final result. The same applies for the previous grids as well. Only once all the protests have been filed and once all the incidents have been reviewed, we will know for sure who has made it into the semi-finals. So, all of you in the comments will need to hope for the best. Hope your drivers had clean races because a lot of these incidents will be investigated later on. But this is what your order standard, I mean, what your order stood, it's what your order stood as at the end of the race. Let's just wait for that final classification screen to show the results as of now. While we wait, we'll just like to invite all the drivers to jump into the ready for interview channel on our Discord as well, where we will be pulling them into the interview. So if any of your teammates, any of you are in touch with your drivers, tell them to be ready for the interview. But this is the final classification. Samyak Damani from Ojaswat Motorsport taking P1, Kevin Kuriakos managing to take P2 after starting P5. So that's a very nice three-place jump for him. Vedant coming in P3 and Nikhilesh Singh taking his NITK electric car into P4. Very unfortunate for the pit squad driver who dropped down to P6 after the final lap. Prithviraj S taking Amrita Racing into P5, just missing out in that P4 position. Rahul Patel from Team Vegadut Racing TVR making it into P7, and Afin Shafi bringing his Zenith Motorsport car into P8. So on that note, let us invite the drivers in. The race directors, please do bring them in whichever order the drivers are interested in giving their interviews in. Yep, just waiting for the drivers to do their mic check. They will be on any minute. Great to see all the support in the chat over there. A lot of support for FAR and for EFAR. So Formula Ashwa riders, you all have definitely managed. You've definitely tackled the formula for media support and a lot of support for your drivers. Really, really nice to see that. See some of our drivers from previous races as well. You see Aryan Somren also in the chat. He was one of the drivers from the previous races, I believe. It's part of the Hermes racing team, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, a lot of drivers also supporting each other. That's what you want to see. Speaking of drivers, well, someone just joined the interview room and left. Let me just wait. So there we have it. We have Nikhilesh, the driver who had that little tussle with the BGR Which Squad driver on the final lap. Before we get into that, let's first start off with the way the race started. Nikhilesh, you got on the pole position, but we saw you drop at the beginning of the race. Can you run us through what happened at the start?
Yeah, basically I reached turn one first, so there was no issue there. But then someone cut the chicane, and then I was kind of spooked, so I didn't change from first to second gear, and I kind of spun into.
Yeah, yeah,
So I just ran back, and then coming into turn three, I tried, I tried to overtake someone, but already there was so much chaos in the front that someone was flying, literally flying towards me,
yeah,
and they hit me, and my engine was damaged, so I had to quit. And then I
yeah.
had some 800, I think 300 seconds penalty.
Yeah,
Or
I saw that. I think one of those cars decided to suddenly become a fidget spinner on track, taking out few others. It was pinball, the proper pinball dodgeball game there. But yeah, after that we saw you in the pits, and then we saw all three cars back in the pits, and it's brilliant drive for you to get back up there into P4. Can you run us through what happened on that final lap with Ishan? I believe that was at that same corner, in fact, in the run up to the Della Roggia chicane.
yeah, I got a good exit out of the turn two, out of the first chicane. So I tried to overtake him once on the outside. He moved. I tried to overtake him once on the inside. He moved again.
Yep,
And then I was still trying to get on the inside of Cavo Grande, but he just he didn't leave me any space. So basically, I just ran into him, and I think there was some a huge speed difference there as well. So
yep,
that was not ideal to say
yeah.
the least.
It's quite difficult to see from that angle with all the shadows and the on the from the circuit. Nonetheless, you know what? Great job, man. Great job on your run up to P4. Of course, these results are just placed like this as of now. We'll have to wait and see what the investigations this race towards say about the incident. But nonetheless, great fight back into P4, Niklesh. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the next driver we have lined up. Let's bring up. Um, we've got Kevin. Let's bring up Kevin into the interview room. I believe Kevin was the P2 finisher for today. Welcome to the interview room, Kevin. Excellent run up to P2. Can you run us first through the race start? You had a brilliant race throughout the entirety of those 20 minutes.
Thank you for so much for having me. Yeah, the start was a bit dodgy. Everyone was here and there, and I had to find my lines. I was right up to the contention for the podium. I was in third, and in the third sector, I kind of crashed. And from there on, we knew we didn't have the pace to run with the top teams, but yeah, it was tire preservation, and I just kept my head down, and we just went for it.
Yep, and a brilliant charge you had. We see you started in P5, so you had one of the best runs through this field, three positions in the span
Oh,
of those
yes.
20 minutes. Definitely a great job. Were there any other specific battles that you had on track? Because from my perspective, I think you had a pretty lonely race in P2.
Yeah, that's true. We actually had a very lonely race, so that was our plan from the start itself. We had to preserve our tires and just keep the race to ourselves. Nothing fancy, nothing too heroic, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's it. It was
Yeah.
safe and simple, and it worked out.
Yep, great charge through that field for sure. I mean, you held your position, you held it, you were consistent. Time and again, we say consistency is what gets you on the podium. And I think you got a well deserved second place. A lot of support for you in the chat. Anyone you want to shout out to?
Oh
Any
yeah,
support you want to shout out to?
oh yeah. All my teammates, in fact, their support is what got me here, and it was like charging me up during the whole race. So kudos to them. Thank you, everyone.
Well done, Kevin. Congratulations. Enjoy your P2 and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
So the next driver we have in the interview room. Can we bring up the race winner first? We've got Samyak. Actually, you know what? Let's save Samyak for a while. Let's bring on Vedant. Vedant was our P3 finisher for the race. Let's just bring Vedant first into the interview room. There we go. Welcome, Vedant. Jumping from P4 into P3. You must be happy with that result, getting onto the podium. I think he's so happy he left the interview room. Just wait for him to return. There we go. Vedant, can we do a mic check, please?
Yes, sir. I'm
Welcome,
audible.
Vedant. Great charge into P3. Can you run us through your race start first?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Can you run us through your race start? You had a brilliant jump into P3 from
Actually,
P4 in qualifying.
I was actually qualified at P4, but there was like some sort of crash at the start. So I
Mhm.
gained at second position, but then my rear wing was damaged. So I went to the pits, but I got I think 105 seconds penalty. That's
Mhm.
why I like lost the lead, but still I managed to like come to the pit three.
Yep,
It was great.
yep. Great charge. We saw multiple drivers pitting out there. What is it like having rear wing damage? How much oversteer did you have? Run us through some of the corners where you were struggling with that.
Not a lot, but it you can feel it actually. Wasn't a lot, but you can feel it actually. And actually, I thought that I have to pay because my engine was wearing out.
Yep, yep. Well, that's still great. I mean, with all the chaos, you still managed to get up on the podium, and that's what really matters. Top four is definitely needed for the semi-finals, but podium is always a sweet prize to take back. On that note,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us, Vedant. Congratulations on P3. At least as the order stands, a lot of things just left yet to be investigated post race, but as the order stands, you have P3. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So let us bring our race winner into the commentary box. We've got Samyak Damani from Just One Motorsports, the driver who pulled that astonishing lead from the beginning. Welcome to the interview box, Samyak. It's been a bit of a runaway victory for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I got hit on the first corner, and then after that, I guess I was just, I mean, everybody, I don't know what happened, but everybody else pitted on the second lap, and I was like, okay, lucky for me.
Yeah, for sure. These sort of moments is what you really have to capitalize on when it comes to racing on these sort of tracks. But yeah, I mean, at least as long as you didn't get any damage, that's pretty much all you really need. Hey, talk us through maybe the consistency. And before that, what sort of input are you using? Are you using a mouse or a controller?
I'm using a controller.
Yep, controller. I could tell that from the steering inputs. Really, really interesting ways you were taking the Lesmos. How was your consistency during the race? What sort of lap times were you able to do consistent lap times throughout?
I mean, so during the first lap, the first corner, the first chicane, my rear wing got damaged, and that's why my car was steering to one side slightly, but it was noticeable during the straights. So I
Mhm.
couldn't get consistent lap times, but like I had a huge lead after the first lap, so I just tried to maintain that. I got around like 140, which was not my
Yep.
best, but I mean that was all I could do.
Yep. But it's all you really had to do to get that P1, and that's what really matters. Samir, congratulations on getting that P1. As of today, at least as of the current classifications, you are P1. A great victory. You have a lot of support from the chat. They're calling you there, Fernando Alonso. Your team is calling you there, Fernando Alonso. Definitely a drive that Alonso would be proud of. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Um, Especially my vehicle department's team in my Otis Motorsports team, because of them we got this setup, and I mean that was what led us to victory. So
Yep. Two things that get the car up there. One, the car and the setup. The second, the driver. All of you work together as a team. You got that victory. Enjoy it. Congratulations.
thank you.
And the final driver we have. So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mm, I was just saying thank you. Sorry, my
Oh,
internet
no worries, man.
lagged for
Great,
a bit.
great. Congratulations as well. Enjoy that. Yep. Um, we have one more driver. I think the last driver who is currently in the interview room. Let's get Prithvi Raj on board. Prithvi Raj S from Amrita Racing into the interview room. There we have it. Prithvi is in the interview room. Welcome, Prithvi. We saw you get a really good qualifying result of P2. And then I believe I did see a red car stall a bit on the start. Did you have some traction issues while getting off the line?
Oh yeah. So the start was poor, and then I thought I could make it up after throughout the race. So after the first chicane, I was accelerating very good, I think, and then the guy in front of me wasn't accelerating that much. So and I saw a bit of inside space, so went in it, and then the right side wheel went into the gas. So and you know the
Mhm.
rest. Sorry.
Yeah, it's always messy when you get some sort of a tire issue, especially in these cars. You lose the grip, and it's basically three tires doing all the work. Three tires are not enough for these sort of beasts that y'all are driving.
Uh,
But yeah, you just narrowly missed out on P4. But
yeah.
we really don't know what's going to happen after post race investigations. You've got P5 currently. I
Yeah.
believe one of your other drivers are yet to do their race, right?
Yeah.
Sandeep Kumar is yet to do his race. Which grid is he in?
He's in grid 6.
It's in grade six. Let's hope Sandeep can take the Phoenix, your car, the Phoenix, up into P4, but still a solid race, Prithvi. Any other incidents you had on track? Unfortunately, I don't remember seeing you much on the stream because it seemed like you may have had a lonely race as well.
No, nothing. Nothing of an incident. So I thought when I came out after the incident, right? So I was in P7 or P8, I think, and then I thought I could make up somehow. So that was a pretty good drive, I think. After that, so I made up to P5. So that was good. That's it.
Definitely, Prithvi. I think definitely it was still a solid charge for you back, after having damage in the first lap and having to pit. Solid charge for you to come back up to P5. So congratulations on that. But you did have a very fast car. We know your team has a lot of potential. Anyone you'd like to thank in the comments?
Yeah, just everybody. I think we did a bit of collaborative work in the team. So yeah, everybody who pitched in their setups also helped me. So yeah.
Yep. But congratulations, Prithvi. A solid drive for you up to P5. We have to wait and see how the order shuffles up maybe later on after we check some of the replay files. But still, great job on finishing the race. Congratulations, Prithvi.
Yeah, thank you.
So on that note, I think we have covered all the drivers who are ready for the interview. Unfortunately, we all wanted to have a chat as well with the BGR, with the Bitsgoa racing driver of Ishan. Unfortunately, not in our commentary box today with us. Hopefully, we can get an idea of what happened later on. But on that note, thank you all for joining us today for Grid 4. It's been an absolute treat. This raid has had a bit of everything today. And we got a lot more action coming up. Can you believe it? We're only 50% only about 50% through in the quarterfinals. We have a lot more coming up. But yeah, on that note, stay tuned. Take care. My name is Said Ramesh. I've been your commentator. It's been a pleasure interacting with you all today. I'd like to sign off on behalf of IR Esports from La Bharat, Optimum G, everybody else involved in this amazing competition. Stay tuned. We have Grid 5 coming up tomorrow. More drivers having a chance to get into the semifinals. I'll see you all tomorrow.